Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. This is the November 12th, 2024, 2 p.m. legislative meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Please let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. 4 are in the chambers. Those are Jordan, Waldrop, French, and Kearns. And Commissioner Cuney is joining us virtually. And if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Please also let the record reflect that we did not receive any written comments on anything that is on the consent agenda. We do have several public hearing items, and as well as we will be taking item 7D, that is D as in dog, separately. And then that will bring us to open public forum. And we have 4 individuals who have signed up for open public forum. So as always, this is any items not on our consent agenda or not on our printed agenda. And we will start with Dominic. I'm sorry if I get this wrong. Yes, Parasini, Dominic Parasini. So yeah, if you'd please come forward, you have 3 minutes, and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. My name's Dominic Parasini. I'm a resident of Otis Orchard, Spokane County. I'd like to talk about the birthing of Camp Hope. It originated almost 37 months ago, December 10th, 2024. It's 28 days from this afternoon. And I'd first just like to read an excerpt from the Spokesman Review article about Camp Hope, written by Emery Denham. And I included that full article so you could take a look at it. And I'm reading mostly from the end part of it. And it's, I quote here now, in fall 2022. Quote, enter former Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. After nearly a year of being largely absent from the political brawls over Camp Hope, Knezovich declared that the Sheriff's Office would assist with clearing Camp Hope if it wasn't closed by the city's October deadline. For months to come, the Sheriff would be a regular figure in the ongoing controversy, appearing several times on Fox News to insinuate wrongdoing and often appearing shoulder to shoulder with Woodward and accusing state and local officials of keeping the camp open due to politics and graft. In early October, Spokane County announced its intentions to sue WSDOT over Camp Hope, hoping to get a judgment to support Knezovich's deadline for the camp, which had been pushed back to mid-November. Camp Hope residents and service providers filed suit against the city and county to block them from sweeping the camp before the residents were placed into housing. Meanwhile, state agencies worked to get Camp Hope residents' ID cards. Shortly before Christmas, temperatures dropped into the negative teens. Woodward pledged anyone who needed shelter from the cold would have refuge at the trench shelter. In January, the county withdrew its lawsuit over Camp Hope in a show of good faith, hoping to allow breathing room for negotiations and coordination of the camp's closure. And that's the end quote. You have the full article. With all due respect, commissioners, nothing seems to have changed since this time in 2021, excuse me. We'd like to ask, what's your plan? Camp Hope 2.0 is on its way, and the encampment may be in your neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Becky Dickerhoof. First off, how was the wedding?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Great.
No
Great.
tornadoes, no cyclones, no snow.
Can't ask for more than that.
Nope. Becky Dickerhoof, Spokane City. I am here today to ask the county commissioners to enact what is commonly referred to as the 1590 tax. This ordinance, which amended RCW 82.14.530, allows a county legislative authority to impose a sales and use tax not to exceed 0.1% of the selling price in the case of a sales tax or value of the article used in case of a use tax. Over the past month, I have crossed our nation from the West Coast to the East Coast. I saw unsheltered residents in every corner of the country. It didn't matter whether it was a city of thousands or a town of hundreds. This last week, the Pacific Northwest Inlander publication addressed the issues that are affecting the unsheltered in our city. Shelter Spokane issued an essay reflecting on the Groundhog Day loop our community is in when it comes to addressing the lack of housing in the Spokane city and county. The housing and homelessness advocates are just as dispirited as the unsheltered in Spokane. We are on a yearly loop where we wring our hands when October and freezing temperatures return. We look to our elected officials and our community to find a solution, and every year we see a new round of meetings from our city, county, and the business power base with the same outcome every winter. Anthony Gill, author of Spokane Rising, summarized it best. Major stockholders play a role in solving problems rather than simply pointing them out and demanding someone else solve them. Attending the Hello for Good Symposium has brought one point to home. These communities who have seen a positive movement in their approach to homelessness had one person, one leader who stepped up and took the helm. They took responsibility for dealing with the problem. They used their political influence, their political assets to address the problem. At some point, our elected officials must decide what is important: special interest groups, their power base, or the constituents who are suffering under the status quo. Affordable housing, available housing for all, for those on fixed incomes and minimum wages is the only solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is John Hancock.
I'm John Hancock. I live on Deep Creek in the West Plains. This EPA map of PFAS near the airport shows serious contamination of 250 home wells. A friend of mine, an engineer, says this is a very gnarly report. Ecology's airport investigation of the source, phase 1, is 400 pages long. If you haven't read this, and the title page is enclosed, buckle your seatbelts, because it confirms the locations and severity of the soil and water contamination. There's a 2-page summary of 400 pages of that report. Ecology cares only about how much PFAS and where it is and where it's going. The long and detailed history doesn't matter very much to Ecology. And FAA said it won't bail out the airport. The PFAS task force I've been seeking is an immediate focus on the health risks for the homeowners on this map, and farther west, also in the Fairchild Zone. Mr. French's Clean Water Plan is a huge and interminable project which seems a boondoggle of municipal water to enable continued residential and commercial expansion on the West Plains. So far, Spokane County has no drinking water distribution anywhere. How long will this take? My neighbors laughed when he said, next summer. In this room, will you respond to the public health needs of 1 in 7 people on the West Plains? That's who I speak for. The other 6 people, 6 of 7, drink clean water now, with PFAS money in the existing pipeline to solve their trouble, if and where it happens. I'm here on behalf of the others, 1 in 7 of us Washington homeowners with no EPA or DOH protections or funding for our PFAS trouble. Every municipal homeowner and every commercial business in the county enjoys PFAS-free water today as a result of 50 years of EPA and Department of Health funding. More of that kind of money is available today for current water purveyors. Municipal PFAS filters qualify in this drinking water pipeline because of the recent addition of PFAS to the long list of prohibited waterborne chemicals. But in addition, recent federal legislation is pouring huge dollars into this same PFAS pipeline towards these same 6 of 7 Washingtonians, plus cleanup funds from potential municipal settlements in the class action lawsuits, which include the city of Spokane and the state of Washington, joined by 13 other states. This rural hole in the drinking water safety net is the issue, and it must be addressed quickly and collaboratively. Your grants through Washington agencies can't succeed without our involvement. Let's get going. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, H.T. Higgins.
My name is H.T. Higgins. Thank you to Commissioners Cooney and Jordan for responding to the Urban Plunge invitation. Disappointed that neither Kearns or French see this as worthy of a response. The birthing of Camp Hope was almost 37 months ago. Camp Hope 2.0 is on its way. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. On June 27th, 2022, you received a memorandum on a plan to efficiently use the ARPA funds to address the challenges of homelessness in Spokane. The following is an excerpt from a Cascade News PBS report dated October 22nd, 2022, 3 months after the memo was given to the county commissioners. And I quote, "Advocates for the unhoused believe the public political battle over Camp Hope is a distraction from a clear reality. Relative inaction from city and county officials when they had years to address the issue. Broadly speaking, the city, the people here, have not wanted to face the reality of homelessness and how significant it is," said Zeke Smith, president of the Empire Health Foundation. People at a bunch of levels wanted to put their blinders on, and in some ways have been able to do that until last year, until the establishment of Camp Hope. In spite of all the political debate over the issue, there was relatively little discussion on the scope of the situation and what has been done about it. Commissioners, a Camp Hope 2.0 is coming to you. With the city's Prop 1, unhoused residents are moving into your neighborhoods. Liberty Lake, off Pines, what's your plan? Sue the city? Bring in the sheriff? Remember, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. The most cost-effective and humane approach is to get track back open now with the funds from the 10 to 12 million that you have in the bank from the mental health sales tax. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else who would like to participate in open public forum? We had 4 folks, so if there's anybody else who would like to come up. All right, not seeing anybody else. Second call, third call. Okay, all right, we will then move on. We'll close public forum, and I will look to my fellow commissioners for a motion on items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, excluding 7D, and yeah.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, I would move that we approve items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, including all the sub-items except 7D, like in Delta.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Okay, 7D. Commissioner Waldron, you wanted to speak to this? And just for the record, 7D is in the matter of committing to increase the governing board of Spokane Regional Emergency Communication, SHREC, board to add the City of Spokane Police Chief if the City of Spokane agrees to join SHREC in conjunction with the City of Spokane Police Dispatch.
Thank you, Commissioner Kearns. So this item we discussed it last week, and then we got the resolution on Friday. I guess I want to give some context to those who are watching. So I'm very heartened to see that the City of Spokane and SHREC, the Spokane Regional Emergency Communications, which is a regional body, are discussing having the city police dispatch join SHREC, which is the last piece that would then complete SHREC in terms of all the dispatch services for the county. The city fire already joined, dispatch already joined SHREC, I think, in the last 2 years. So I'm really glad that the city and SHREC are discussing what it would take and negotiating what it would take for the city police dispatch to join, what would be the costs, what would be the benefits. This item basically would say that I'm uncomfortable voting yes on this item because it's predisposing what the board should look like before those negotiations have been completed. So what I would like to see is the city and SHREC to finalize their negotiations of what it would look like for city police dispatch to join. Would that require any changes in fees? Would it require any changes in governance? And then bringing that forth to this body to make a decision. This resolution basically says, well, we think the city police chief should join the board. I'm not opposed to the city police chief joining the board, but maybe there's another governance model that needs to be explored, and I don't want to leave the other options out. So again, I'm not opposed to the city joining. I'm not opposed to the police chief being on the board, but I think that SHREC and the city should propose a final proposal back to this board, and then we can vote on that when those negotiations have been completed. So this, to me, just kind of seems like it's presupposing what the governance structure should be before those negotiations have been completed. So that's why I'm just not comfortable voting yes on this. Thank you.
Commissioner Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would just agree with Commissioner Waldriff's position today. I'll be voting no, not because I don't want the city police chief to join the board if the city police department joins SHREC, but simply because I think it's premature for the board to really weigh in on that at this point in time. It's a bit of an unusual resolution because it's not actually a final action on the SHREC board governance structure. It's basically a statement of intent about what this board will do if certain things happen in the negotiation. And so I'd just prefer to let that negotiation play out rather than kind of negotiating by resolution. My understanding is that there's meetings that are occurring. Hopefully that will result in a positive outcome for the entire region. The city commissioned a consultant report to kind of look at the question of having the police department join SHREC, and I believe that report raised a question about basically proportional representation for the city on that board, given that the city residents make up about 42% of the population of the county and make substantial contributions to SHREC's revenues. But I just think we should remain open to let that negotiation process play out before weighing in prematurely. Thank you.
Commissioner French.
So I'll take this opportunity to speak on behalf of the rest of the county with regard to SHREC. When we started out with SHREC, we wanted to improve emergency communications and response time throughout the county. And we created a governance structure and deliberately made it so that it would be led by the experts, those that are on the front line, those that are with the fire departments, the fire districts, the police departments, the police districts, and the sheriff's office, those that are on the front line that have to deal with emergency communications on a daily basis. And that decision very deliberately left elected officials off of that governance board. The only elected official that's on that board is the sheriff. That's because he's the senior law officer for the county. And you know what? It's working. Our response times have been reduced. Our efficiencies have been increased. We've achieved many, if not all, of the original goals that we set out to achieve. And that's evidenced by the fact that now, years after we've been in operation, the city has decided, well, maybe we do want to be part of that. But if we want to be part of it, we want to change it. Why change it if it's working? And if you don't like the way it's working, don't be part of it. Do it on your own. Pay for it on your own. The previous CFO for the city of Spokane said the city of Spokane would save millions of dollars annually by being part of SHREC. Well, evidently, maybe they've got more money than they know how to manage. Well, wait a minute. No, that's not true. They're underwater. So, there's no one forcing the city of Spokane to be part of SHREC. It's a decision they can make. But if you don't like the party, don't show up. We're achieving all of our goals. We've reduced response times. We've improved communications across the county. And so this is merely reflecting the fact that we have said in the past, if the city decides to join, we would make room on the board for the police chief, much like we have for the fire chief. So we're just following through with what we said from the very beginning. Nothing's different, nothing's new. What is new, though, for the region is we've got an emergency communication system that is doing a great job for our community. And so for that reason, I'll be voting in favor of this motion. Thank you.
See, Commissioner Cuny, you turned your, would you like to speak?
Yes. So I'll be voting in favor of this. We did bring it up. I think Scott, our CEO, brought it up a couple of weeks ago as well when we talked about this. So I've been in those meetings, Commissioner Kerninger in the meetings as well, but I also was in meetings prior to this when we went through the 3 months cycle. And I think the point to this resolution is to say there seems to be a hang up on this governance structure from the city of Spokane. And I think, as Commissioner French said, I was part of this from when I first became commissioner, I was on the 911 board before it became a regional entity. And this was what everyone who was at the table, of which city of Spokane officials were at the table at that time as well, came together and came up with this governance structure that then the county voted on to move forward as a public development authority for the region. And then when the city chose not to join, then we removed the city police, the city fire chief, and the city administrator from the board. Over time, I think it was about a year ago or a year and a half, or 2 years ago in November, Mr. Simmons, you would be able to correct me on that as you're sit on the board, came on and became part of SHREC at that point. And when they did so, we added the city administrator and we added the fire chief. Since then, the fire dispatch has seen a 30-second reduction in call time. That saves lives. So we know SHREC is doing a great job. We know they're doing really well. We have seen as commissioners, as well as these meetings have gone on and we've talked about it, that the other entities that are part of SHREC have asked us to not change the government structure, that they see it working very, very well. When the report was done for the city of Spokane, that it was talked about having more of a presence on SHREC. And that's why adding the chief of police, if the city police does choose to join, would add additional influence on that board. So I will be voting yes, because I think it is what we intended. We wanted to keep the politics out of it. There's been, there was a different form of government that was presented by the city of Spokane that I think would put politics back into it. This is about public safety, keeping our citizens safe, keeping our citizens alive. I mean, because every second that they can get to a citizen sooner on fire or police saves lives. And so I'm pretty passionate about this. And as we've seen with the negotiations, we would still really like to have those negotiations continue, but this governance seems to be a point that we just need to take this piece off the table so then the decision can really be made. Does the city want to join and be part of it or not? And I hate to see us take apart an organization that is doing really well for one entity that wants to join. If they don't want to join, they don't have to join. It really is their choice. So I'll be voting yes.
Yeah, as Commissioner CUNY stated, she and I both serve on that transition committee that was stood up, and we've had several meetings to discuss this. And I just want to state that this resolution that lays out this current structure for the SHREC board has the support of the Inland Empire Fire Chiefs Association, the Spokane County Fire Commissioners Association, and the majority of the SHREC board. Also, I mean, it's been stated more than once here that the city does have the ability to go at this alone. They have that full authority to start their own PSAP, which is Public Safety Answering Point. They are under no obligation to join SHREC if they choose not to. So this is something, I mean, as stated, I mean, I don't want to sit here and repeat everything Commissioners French and CUNY stated, but I mean, the fact is that the board structure was set up the way it is for functionality. It is working. It is to keep it from being overrun by elected officials. That essentially is the proposal that we have received from the city of Spokane, is to stand up sort of a coexisting board full of elected officials. I think what we have works. It was set up that way intentionally, and so I will also be voting yes on this agenda item. Any more comments? Go for it.
Yeah, I think that maybe the difference is, I mean, I wasn't involved with setting up the SHREC. I do think that the response times are looking really, really good. We got a great presentation last year, and they've been responsive to asking for quicker responses to Crime Check, and they've staffed up to do that, which is excellent. So again, if it is the city's choice, if the city wants to join or not. So I'm hopeful that the city will negotiate with SHREC around what that looks like and what works for everyone, because I would assume that it benefits SHREC for the city to join as well. So again, I personally don't have a lot invested in the board structure. I wasn't involved with setting it up. I'm open to, you know, what comes back to us from the city and SHREC. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I appreciate all the comments from the entire board. We did receive kind of an outline, it looks like, of what that city proposal is. Haven't really got an explanation about it or discussed it in great depth, but it looks like dividing up the board into a kind of financial piece and an operational piece, keeping the experts in charge of the operation, but having more elected official involvement into the user fees, those types of things, budget decisions. And there sounds like the city consultant report did raise some questions about whether those fees are appropriate in funding SHREC, and I certainly am not taking a position on that today, just trying to articulate what I think the proposal is to kind of divide up those two pieces. But I just prefer that we remain open to the discussion and let the process play out. So appreciate the comments, but I'll be voting no because I do think it's still premature.
Okay. So I guess first, do we have a motion on item 7B, or 7D, sorry.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would move that we approve item 7D, like in Delta, in the matter of committing to increase the governing board of the Spokane Regional Emergency Communications, otherwise known as SHREC, board to add City of Spokane Police Chief if the City of Spokane agrees to join SHREC in conjunction with City of Spokane Police Dispatch.
I will second.
All right, motion and a second. We had our discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All oppose.
Nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. All right, that will bring us on to our public hearing items, and we will start with public hearing item number 8A. And I think we're going to have several presentations here by Matt Zarakor, but this first one is to consider the adoption of the 2025 to 2023 Transportation Improvement Program, 2025 Annual Construction Program, 2025 to 2023 Stormwater Capital Improvement Program, and 2025 to 2030 Wastewater Capital Improvement Program for the Spokane County Public Works Department.
Thank you, Commissioner Kearns. I appreciate the opportunity to present the 6-year plan for Public Works. As stated, this is for transportation, stormwater, and for our wastewater programs. We're going to start out with transportation. You can see up here the 6-year plan. We just have a few numbers about it, the proposed number of projects being proposed each year. And you can see we hover between 15 to 21. And then each year you can see the numbers vary greatly. We discussed in briefing. The reason for that being is we're out there trying to get a lot of grants. We don't anticipate landing them all, but if you don't have them in your transportation improvement program, you can't even go out and apply for them. So really important we have all the projects that we think we might want in the program, but some of those numbers are probably larger than we're actually expecting. A $20 million year is pretty typical for us. Bigelow this year made it quite a bit larger, but in a normal year that would be conventional and typical for us. Next slide. A little bit about the program. You can see in the bottom left there, this is one I know I always harp on, but it's a really big deal. We're at about a 6-to-1 ratio. 86% of the dollars that go into our capital transportation program are state and federal funds. Our match is 14%, and that's really, really good. That makes a huge difference in the amount of projects that we can get done each year. And it frees up a lot of money that we can put back into our maintenance preservation program and keep our road system in better shape. On the right side, you can see the major transportation programs that we're going to be doing this year. Hatch Road, we completed half of it this year. We're going to complete the north half this next year. If you haven't been up there, I encourage you to go take a look. It turned out really nice. I think the residents up there will appreciate it. The road is narrower, but it was kind of an unusable, super wide 2-lane section, and now we have a separated pathway that's much more usable for the community. This project will cost $2.9 million. We do anticipate completing it next year. The next project's Cascade reconstruction. It's kind of an east-west connector, if you're familiar with it, up on the north side of town. And it's a $1.4 million project, and it's a total reconstruction, and we also anticipate finishing that next year. Market Street, this is from Freya and heading north. It's a 2-inch pavement inlay for 1.1 miles. It's a preservation project, and $2.3 million, and again, we'll finish it next year. The next one's our roundabout. We tend to have one roundabout a year, and they've been really good projects for us. We finished the one on the South Hill this year, and this next one we're anticipating will be out at State Line, and it's a $1.2 million project. These are 100% funded with safety money. And if you've been out at State Line, it's a really busy intersection where Wellesley hits in on Appleway and gets pretty dangerous. Folks get impatient and take bad gaps, a lot of young drivers. And there have been a lot of accident history out there, so we're pretty happy about getting that one on the ground. Should make it a lot safer for people traveling the intersection. Hastings Road channelization and Wall Street to Graves pedestrian safety. This is another safety project. Hastings, if you're familiar with it, this is that Fred Meyers. We put in some temporary channelization. There were a lot of accidents there. It was our highest accident point. And this will take care of it. The temporary has worked, but we just need to make it permanent with concrete. And then the pedestrian portion on Wall Street and Graves, that's just creating a better route heading north. And the pedestrian improvements are, you can see there, pedestrian refuge island and flashing beacon at Wall Street. And that's a $600,000 project. We're going to finish that this coming year also. The last one is Deer Park Milan preservation. If you're familiar with that, it goes from the community of Milan west towards Deer Park from Highway 2. It's a 2-inch grind-in inlay for $1 million, and it will again be done next year. Next slide, please. Moving on to stormwater, you can see here we've laid out our anticipated expenditures for the next 6 years. And you can see those numbers go up. This is once we get back in compliance with GMA, we can apply for ecology grants again. We were highly successful historically with those grants, and we anticipate being successful again once we can apply for them. And that's why we go up from the 500,000 for 2025. You can see we're about $1 million to 2.2 million for the next few years. And so be able to do some good work and keep the water clean. Those are obviously focused on high ADT roads where we have more pollutant loading, and also in areas that are over our drinking water aquifers. Next slide. Moving on to wastewater, you can see we've divided up our wastewater expenditures into 3 pieces here: the collection system, Riverside, our portion of the treatment plant for the city, and then our own water reclamation facilities. You can see those numbers there. We have a pretty big year in 2027 that we'll talk about in the next slide, and then we have a $385,000 contribution to upgrades at the Riverside plant next year, and then $530,000 for our own plant. Next slide. Here's a list of some of the major projects that we're anticipating coming up. You can see Donwood and Grace out there in the Spokane Valley. That's another septic tank elimination program project. Lane Park Sewer, that one's going to go. And you can see the actual construction dates, 2027 for both of those projects. Hatch Road Sewer, that's just filling in a gap in conjunction with our Hatch Road project. Marion Hay Parallel Force Main Phase 3, that one's going to be in design next year, or actually this year, and it's going to go out for next year for completion. It's an $800,000 project. We have an undercrossing on Highway 2, and then the last one's just our share of the treatment plant at Riverside. Next slide. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Matt? Commissioner French?
So I know in previous approved tips, we had the Craig Thorpe Road realignment as part of those, and that's still not done, and it's not on this list. Is it still a project moving forward, or where are we at?
It's funny you would ask, Commissioner. I actually signed the closing documents earlier this afternoon on the right-of-way to do that project, so that was kind of the linchpin in that. Now we can go chase down the money to go complete it. So yes, it is in the tip, and it is moving forward.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Any other comments? Okay. All right, well, this is a public hearing item, so anybody wishing to testify on item 8A, please come forward. Second call. Anybody online? No one online? A few more ticks. Okay, third and final call. Seeing no one wishing to testify, we'll close the public hearing, and I will look to my fellow commissioners for a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would move that we approve item 8A, which is consider the adoption of the 2025-2030 Transportation Improvement Program, 2025 Annual Construction Program, 2025 to 2030 Stormwater Capital Improvement Program, and the 2025-2030 Wastewater Capital Improvement Program for Spokane County Public Works Department as presented today.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any final comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item 8B, which is to consider the establishment of Spokane County roads, Meadowview Road, 21st Court, Barker Road, and 32nd Avenue in the Platts Morrison Ranch Phase 1, 2, and 3, County Engineers Road File number 300O for the Spokane County Public Works Department. Take it away, Matt.
All right. Thank you again, Commissioner. So we just have one establishment today. This one has, as mentioned, is for Morrison Ranch, phases 1, 2, and 3. These are 5-acre lots out in the South Valley on Saltese Road. And you can see there, Barker runs through the middle of it, this project to realign Barker, which is a portion of a plan that we'd like to implement, making a better connection from Barker to 32nd out back over to Sullivan and 32nd. So nice to have a project build, a private project build that portion of roadway for us. If you've driven it, it's a very nice arterial. They did a good job out there. And this is an establishment that's a little bit overdue, so we're just cleaning up some paperwork and getting these roads established. They were designed, built, and certified in accordance with our standards, and I recommend establishing these roadways. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Matt? Seeing none. Okay. All All right, again, this is a public hearing, so anybody wishing to testify on item 8B, please come forward. Second call. Nobody online. Third and final call. We will close the public hearing, and I will look to my fellow commissioners for a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would move that we approve item 8B like in Bob. Consider establishment of county roads, Meadowview Road, 21st Court, Barker Road, and 32nd Avenue, and the Platts Morrison Ranch Phase 1, 2, and 3, County Engineers Road File Number 300-0 for Spokane County Public Works Department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to public hearing item number 8C. This is to consider revising Spokane County Traffic Code, section number 46.61.4155.2, 25 miles per hour, Glen Rose Road and 17th Avenue for the Spokane County Public Works Department. Back to Matt.
Thank you again, Commissioner. So we have two public hearings today regarding speed limits. This first one was a petition that was put forward by the neighborhood. You can see along the north side of Glen Rose, the area marked in red there, it's pretty dense housing, and they're pretty close to the road. And the roadway to the east, or to the west rather, into the city is 25 miles an hour. All the roads around this are 25 mile an hour. Glen Rose is 35, but it's further to the east, the main portion of Glen Rose. This is a pretty quiet neighborhood feeling roadway. They put forth some good points on why they wanted it. They said there's a lot of young children in these houses here, and it has a very community feel. They're very close to the road, so they feel vulnerable to fast-moving traffic. And just would appreciate our consideration on this. Our traffic engineer took a look at it. He agreed. He said, yeah, we really should have this at 25 miles an hour, so we're bringing it to you. Our recommendation would be to approve it as a 25 mile an hour roadway. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Well, this is a public hearing item, so anybody wishing to testify on item 8C, please come forward. Second call. No one online. Third and final call. Seeing no one wishing to testify, we'll close the public hearing. And Commissioner Waldron, you said you have a question?
Sorry, I apologize, Mr. Zarecor. I had a quick question for you. So the road continues, is it 25 miles an hour when it gets into the city of Spokane?
Yeah, every roadway that Big Springs, Dearborn, 20th,
Okay.
Custer Street, and then the City of Spokane roadway are all 25 miles
Okay,
an hour.
so it'll be consistent across it. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right. So is there a motion?
So, Mr. Vice Chair, I would move that we approve item 8C like in Charlie, consider revising Spokane County Traffic Code section number 46.61.4155.2, 25 miles per hour, Glen Rose Road and 17th Avenue for the Spokane County Public Works Department as presented today.
Second. All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Now I might vote no. Never mind. I'll stick with yes.
Saw you guys arguing with each other over here. So, all right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. All right. I can second them. All right, this brings us to item 8D, which is consider revising Spokane County Traffic Code section number 46.61.4155.2, 25 miles per hour, Meadowview Road and various roads for Spokane County Public Works Department.
Okay, thank you again, Commissioner. Last public hearing today. And this one is really the background on this, and I think you're all familiar with it, but just for the record, in Spokane County, anything outside our urban area, if we establish a roadway, it is automatically a 35 mile an hour road unless we pass a resolution making it something else. So all these roads, unless a resolution is passed, are 35 miles an hour. We don't want them to be that fast. These are all neighborhood roadways, local access roadways. So we go through the effort of passing this resolution, if the board so approves, to make these roads 25 miles an hour as they were intended. frankly, even when the plans are approved, the signs in there are all 25 miles an hour, but it's not legal until we go through the effort of making the resolution. So number of neighborhoods we're talking about. This first one you can see is the neighborhood that we just got done establishing. This is Morrison Ranch and Meadowview. There's a cluster development on the north end, which just means a really dense neighborhood in a rural zone. Next slide, please. This one out here you can see is just a little further north. This is the Twin Bridges neighborhood, also called Meadowview Terrace is the actual name of the plats. And I think there's either 3 or 4 phases that we're doing this for. And again, we're just cleaning up the code so it's actually enforceable by law enforcement. But all those roadways were originally intended to be 25 and we're just following through on that. Next slide, please. This one's on the South Hill, 65th Avenue, heading up the side of Krell Mountain up there. Custer Street, you can see going north-south. We had some neighborhood community folks come in and talk to us about these roads. They eventually will connect through, but for right now, we're just establishing the portions that are built and certified. Next slide. And this one is up north. This is another cluster development. You can't see the lots here, but this is a residential density. I think they're half-acre lots, so it's pretty dense up here. And again, they're short roadways. They were intended to be 25 miles an hour. Next slide. I think that's it. Okay. Those are all of them. Happy to answer any questions. It would be the recommendation of my office that we make these all 25. That is what they were intended for. They are short neighborhood streets, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right. This is a public hearing item, so anybody wishing to testify on item 8D, please come forward. Second call. No one online. Third and final call. Seeing no one wishing to testify, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll look to my fellow commissioners for a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, very much like to make a motion to approve item 8D as presented by staff, revising Spokane County Traffic Code section number 46.61.4155.2, 25 miles per hour, Meadowview Road, and various roads for the Spokane County Public Works Department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any final comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner CUNY, do we have your permission to use your stamp?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that does it for these items. We did continue this morning's meeting for any items we did not get to, and then we also have some items that are scheduled regarding the budget, a budget workshop. So, Mr. Simmons, should we do those over in the conference room?
Yeah, I think it would be great. And we
Okay.
have one closed session item, too, that we'd like to cover with the commissioners prior to that. And I suspect it'll be about 20 minutes.
Was there also another executive session as well, or just the
I think we
closed?
can hold those until next week.
Okay. All right. So anything else for the good of the order before we sign documents and head over?
We do have, so we do have one, we do have one exec session item that our chief civil wants to share.
Okay. So when we
We go
sign
back
our
in the conference
documents,
room.
when we head over, we will start with a closed session and an executive session, and then we will get into our budget workshop and
Yes.
items that are left over from this morning. So, Commissioner CUNY.
So I'm just going to clarify. So to zoom in, I just zoom in on this meeting.
Yep, use that same one.
Okay.
Ron is actually saying just stay on, and we'll pick you up over there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for coming out.